Come on, let's go. Let's go. We got work to do. Come on, let's go.
G'day legends! Apologies for the nearly 2-month break. Back in July I was in Byron Bay with some friends when I got a call and had to rush back down to Melbourne. Sadly, my dad fell ill and passed away surrounded by family on July 23rd. Thanks for everyone's patience and sticking in there with me, and for all of the messages. Everyone's words have been very consoling and I appreciate the support. This dream to get my first sailboat is one that was really imprinted on me by my dad and by having his DNA. Being Dutch, sailing is kinda in the blood. But like the title of this video says, this has been the hardest video to make, to get myself ticking again. But it's time to put one foot in front of the other and get this channel going. It's time to get to the boat and get it ready to attempt to sail it to the Football World Cup in 2026. So please follow and support the journey. All you have to do to help is click like and subscribe. It's absolutely free and helps the channel get boosted in the algorithm. This journey is now dedicated to my dad.
Hello, mother. Hello, father. Here I am at Camp Grenada.
Because of the recent time off, and for all of the newbies, here's a reminder of what happened so far and what's coming up. Over a series of recent episodes, I've been at home in Australia trying to buy a hurricane-damaged Beneteau 50 sailboat that was laying on her side after a direct hit by an almost Category 5 hurricane in a dodgy boatyard on the other side of the world in the Caribbean. The dodgy boatyard and an even dodgier salvager were both doing some really suspect things over there, which, because I'm being watched by lawyers and others at the moment, I won't say were illegal, but if you go back a couple of episodes to episode 15, you'll see the listed facts of what exactly went on, and I think they speak for themselves. I'll put a link to episode 15 at the end of this episode. Eventually, after what seemed like forever, the boat was finally salvage lifted then inspected, after which I was satisfied enough to commit to buy it, albeit with money that I borrowed from an absolute ripper mate. Then came the journey from cold southeastern Australia to go and meet my sailboat and future home in the beautiful tropical Caribbean. First I had a stopover in Miami, where I was supposed to look around for a replacement mast and for places to bring Benny the Beneteau and myself for the 2026 World Cup. After Miami, I was on my way to Grenada for a few days to look for a better boatyard to move my boat to, because if there's one thing I'd learned from all the sketchy goings on whilst trying to buy this boat, it was that I wasn't going to be keeping Benny at that debacle of a boatyard. Along the way, there's been some freakish happenings on this journey, which have made for a great story, but the biggest one of the lot is still to come, because whilst looking for a new boatyard, I have a 1 in a million chance meeting with the two main people that had inspired me to pursue all of this craziness in the first place, and who also have what I think is the best sailing channel on YouTube, Sascha and Raff from Spirit Animal. I then catch the ferry to the island to pick up my yacht, but if I thought I was just going to sail away into the sunset, I was kidding myself. The salvager and boatyard weren't quite done with me yet, and they were not playing nice. The flight across the Caribbean was easily the most scenically beautiful flight I'd ever been on. We flew over and past many stunning Caribbean islands and saw many beautiful beaches. They seemed to be glowing in the beautiful morning tropical sunshine, all the way from Miami to Grenada. There were a few lone sailboats that could be made out as they crossed from island to island. I stared at these white specks on the beautiful blue ocean and took in as much as I could from 33,000 feet. These tiny little white dots filled me with wonder and envy, and I hoped that one day soon, one of those little white dots would be me. I also wondered if in days to come I'd be looking up from there at a jet plane with an excited new sailboat owner staring back down at me, and wondered what I'd tell them if I had the chance. The only thing I really knew about Grenada before I received a big hit to the head and decided to try and become a sailor was that it was one of the small island nations from the Caribbean that made up the West Indies. And having grown up in Australia, the only thing I knew about the West Indies is that it was a cricket team and that for a fair while their cricket team was one of the greatest sports team of any sport anywhere in the world. Even more incredible when you consider that the West Indies have a combined population of only around 6 million people, yet still punch way above their weight, regularly smashing way bigger countries in cricket, like Australia, England, South Africa, and even India, who have 1.4 billion people and cricket as their national sport. Grenada itself, although closely aligned with many other Caribbean island nations, has its own unique history and culture. It's made up of 3 islands, Petite Martinique, Carriacou, and the main island of Grenada. This main island is lush, green and mountainous, a tropical paradise with rich soil and formed by volcanic activity. It was first settled by native South American Arawak Indians in around the 4th century AD, or CE. The American Arawaks, however, were later subdued by the more militant Caribs, who were also thought to have originated from Native American tribes. In 1498, Columbus sighted the island, but basically ignored it and sailed on. It was later named Grenada by Spanish sailors after the city in Spain, and later anglicised by the English to Grenada. The island was then bypassed for a long time, likely because of fears about the militant Caribs. The French, however, turned up in 1649 with guns and pretty much wiped out the Caribs. In one battle in 1650, French settlers attacked a sleeping Carib encampment. Many Caribs jumped to their deaths from a cliff rather than be captured, leading to the site's name, Mont de Sauteurs, or Jumpers Headland. This event marked the beginning of a war that effectively destroyed the Carib way of life on the island and virtually wiped them out. The French then set up sugar and indigo plantations. Indigo is a plant used for creating textile dyes. It's the blue in your blue jeans. These plantations were worked by slaves the French brought in from Africa. From 1756 to 1763, the 7-Year War happened, with the British taking control. The French took it back again in 1779 during the American Revolutionary War, but it was ceded back to the British in 1783 after the Treaty of Versailles. The British then brought over more slaves. In 1795, a revolt began against British rule and slavery, led primarily by a man named Julien Fedon. He was a mixed-race French-speaking native from Martinique, and he had the help of other free mixed-race French speakers. But Fedon's revolt was quashed the following year. Fedon's efforts, however, were not totally in vain, as the tide had begun to turn against slavery, and it was eventually abolished on the island 37 years later. After the abolition of slavery, the major industry in Grenada became the growing of nutmeg, which amazingly it still is to this day, along with many other spices, which is why Grenada is commonly known around the world as the Spice Isle. Grenada finally gained independence from Britain in 1974. But in the years that followed, Grenada started to swing a bit to the left and became a Marxist-Leninist communist state. Although interestingly, they decided to keep a Governor-General, so they were briefly the only ever communist-like state under the monarchy of Great Britain. That all changed though in 1983, when Prime Minister Maurice Bishop was executed during an internal coup. The USA then decided to invade, fighting off a few Cubans and overthrowing the communist-leaning government. Grenada returned to a democracy. If you're into your Cold War history, it's well worth looking into. Today, Grenada is a peaceful, stunningly beautiful green tropical island, which is a popular tourist destination and has a total population of around 117,000 in a total area of about 340 square kilometres. The accommodation was booked for just a few minutes drive north of the airport and just south of the capital of St George's, and right near a few key locations like Grand Anse Beach, supermarkets and marine supply stores, and the dock from where the ferry leaves to travel to Beni the Beneteau at Carriacou. But more importantly, it was also perfectly in the middle of 3 marinas that I needed to check out for when I bring Benny back to the main island. At the same time I was checking out these marinas and boatyards, I was also speaking to the riggers working out of each to see if they knew of any available masts that might suit a 50-foot Beneteau.
Hello, mother. Hello, father. Here I am at Camp Grenada. Camp is very entertaining, and they say we'll have some fun if it stops raining.
The first boatyard to check out was St. Louis, which was right next to the main port of St. George's. It was a bit rainy that day, but even so I could see it was a really nice marina and had the added bonus of being a pretty safe hurricane hole, which basically means it's really well protected from the swell by land, but also protected from the wind by high surrounding hills. By the looks of it, it was also very well run and had great facilities. However, they were more of a marina than a boatyard and had very little, if no, hardstand and boatworks area.
Now I don't want this should scare you, but my bunkmate has malaria. You remember Jeffrey Hardy? They're about to organize a searching party.
The next boatyard was Clark's Court. This was more of an industrial boatyard and less of a marina, something which would suit what I was doing a little bit better. They had all the basic facilities, including a very big chandlery, riggers, fiberglasses and engineers. Everything you could want for boat maintenance, as well as a laundry, general store and a bar restaurant. This must be Clark's Court, right?
Yes.
Have you got other jobs to do in the meantime, or?
One guy gonna wait, I'll hold on for you.
We'll pay you a little bit extra to wait if you want. Wow, this is big. No, I don't know. But I wanted to come and have a look at it anyway.
Morning, right now, how you doing?
Stop hailing. Guys are swimming. Guys are sailing. Playing baseball. Gee, that's better. Pada, kindly disregard this ladder.
Welding tech. Some big cat stuff going on around here. And this might be turbulence. There is a mast here. Might have found them. The rigging station for turbulence. This is driftwood. There we go. The cruisers gallery. Not bad. Hey. Yeah. The next couple of days I was up for a bit of sightseeing, and there were two things in particular that if you come to St. George's you probably need to see and do. The first is the Chocolate Museum. This was a great place to learn a little bit about Grenada's history, but also to learn about and buy chocolate. Thank you. Hello, how are you? Do you mind if we film a little bit? It's okay. Yeah, no problem, thank you.
How to make chocolate. These are the cocoa pods. They grow on trees all over the world, especially in the equatorial regions. That's what they look like after being sun dried. So they're brown, they're hard, you can't crush them and get out the cocoa nib. The cocoa nib is inside the seeds. So we sell them to the factory, and the factory's first job is to toast or roast these seeds so they turn darker in color. We begin with 75%. 75% chocolate. That means there's 25% sugar.
The second place I was really looking forward to, the underwater sculpture park in Dragon's Bay, just a short distance north of the capital, St. George's. This was the first underwater sculpture park of its kind anywhere in the world, and is kind of unmissable for anyone who loves diving or even just a bit of snorkeling.
Good luck, Johnny.
My guide was Johnny, who motored me out there and then got in the water and pulled the boat around quicker than I could actually swim.
Johnny's just swimming along the tail of his boat.
Yeah.
And I can't keep up with it. With flippers on.
This was also my first time using a GoPro underwater. I couldn't dive properly because I had no weight belt, and I'm really no good at holding my breath for very long, so my footage was limited in quality. It'll get better, people, I promise. But in the meantime, here's my footage and a little bit that I borrowed. The next day it was time to visit the last place I'd see before heading to the ferry to go and finally meet Benny the Beneteau. And it was probably the most important place, Spice Island Marine. With all the bad vibes being given out by the boatyard where I'd bought Benny, a few people had recommended and even relocated to Spice Island. I'd also seen a little bit of this place while watching an episode of Lauren Landers when she hauled out to do some work the season before. I stepped out of the apartment to head to Spice Island Marine, and decided to risk my life by riding a push bike on Grenadian roads. I figured I had a decent chance of surviving though, with it being just a short 5-minute ride away from the hotel. My travelling companion, travel writer Elizabeth, who had travelled with me from Australia and is also a spirit animal fan, decided not to risk the Grenadian roads and stayed back at the apartment. Now at the time of filming this, I'd been watching Spirit Animals channel religiously, and as I've mentioned before, they, along with Lauren Landers, were the two main reasons I'd been inspired about sailing life and then gone and actually bought a sailing boat, which just like both of theirs, was also a 50-foot Beneteau. And around this time on their channels, they'd been talking about their plans of buddy sailing together across the Pacific. And Lauren had actually posted episodes showing that she'd actually begun her journey towards the Panama Canal. So that is where I was expecting all of them to be. Also at this stage, Raff and Sascha from Spirit Animal hadn't publicly announced that they'd found and bought their second boat together, a hurricane-damaged lagoon catamaran. So I was totally unprepared for what happened next. I arrived at Spice Island and rode my bike up to the security gate to sign in. As I was signing in the near distance, I heard a very jovial and very familiar voice. Now, as I've said before, I've watched a lot of Spirit Animal, but it was only then I'd realised just how much I'd watched. I kind of let out a small laugh, because I knew instantly when I heard that voice, whose voice it was. Sascha! I finished signing in and poked my head around the corner from the security booth, and 30 metres away I saw blonde hair swinging and legs bouncing up a ladder at the stern of a bright blue 50-foot Beneteau with a round lime green logo. Right in front of me was Sascha and Raff from Spirit Animal. So after travelling halfway around the world, the two very people that had inspired me to change my life to a sailing life and even buy a 50-foot Beneteau were right there in front of me with their 50-foot Beneteau, even though they weren't supposed to be. And this was just another one of those strange coincidences that I keep talking about that seemed to be telling me I was on the right path. Finally. Anyway, I didn't waste any time and slightly nervously walked straight up to the stern of their boat. And forgive me for not filming all of this, but it just still makes me feel awkward shoving a camera in people's faces, even if those people do it to themselves every day. And this might also tell you a little bit about what awesome humans these two are. At the time I approached them, they were running really behind on time to secure everything and get their stuff together as they had to get to the airport to catch a flight. But when this random Aussie fanboy walked up to their boat and said, "Hi guys, big fan from Australia," they stopped what they were doing and with big smiles started having a good old chinwag. Now at this stage it was about 3 weeks before they had announced to the world that they had bought a hurricane damaged boat from Carriacou, which in another strange coincidence they had found just 300 metres away from where my boat is. And at that time, as I mentioned earlier, from watching their channel, I thought their plans were to go buddy sailing across the Pacific with Lauren Landers. So I asked them, "So what are you guys doing here? Aren't you supposed to be heading over to cross the Pacific with Lauren?" Sascha said, "Oh yeah, plans have kind of changed," and pointed to a sketchy looking lagoon catamaran parked up next to Spirit Animal. They told me that they had found this hurricane damaged catamaran at Carriacou, so now they'd be here fixing it for a year. They told me a bit about how it had been flipped upside down and then almost completely sank when the salvage crane had tried to lift it. And that's a story that's now been completely covered on their YouTube. It's really worth looking at. Go and check it out. Wow, what a story, I thought. I then told them that I was there looking for a place to put my Beneteau 50, that I was mostly inspired to buy because I had been watching way too much of their channel and had fallen in love with their Beneteau 50, and that I had also found mine in Carriacou. "So this is all your fault," I told them. They seemed pretty amused by this, and maybe even a little bit guilty. They told me what a great yard Spice Island was, and that I wouldn't regret having my boat here. I hadn't even really looked around yet, but I knew that they knew, so I was kinda already sold. I then told them that I also had a YouTube channel, and Raff asked what it was called. A little embarrassed, I said, "Well, I'm new at all of this, so it's called What the Hell Am I Doing?" Sascha and Raff laughed, and then Raff asked which exact boat I had bought, and I told them the name, and because they had also been over at Carriacou, they both knew my boat. I also told them that just like their new catamaran, my boat also needed a mast. And it was then that Raff asked for my email, because he might know of a mast that was available which would suit. And knowing how busy he was with his channel, I couldn't believe he offered to help. So if you're watching this, Raff, thanks again, mate. At that point, I also remembered Elizabeth, who was also a big fan and had very unluckily now stayed back at the apartment. I mentioned to Sascha and Raff how much she'd be regretting that she hadn't come to the yard, so they then offered to say hi to her via a recorded video message.
What's up, Elizabeth?
After a really nice chat, I said I'd taken up enough of their time and let them get back to packing, and I took off on the bike to have a look around the yard. 10 minutes later, when I was finished looking around, I had to ride past them again as I headed out the gate. Raff spotted me going past and called me over. Now, I didn't think I could be a bigger fan of these two, but I was wrong. Raff reached down and handed me 2 Spirit Animal caps, one for me and one for Elizabeth. I don't think I took that cap off for the next 3 weeks, and I still wear it a lot. With that, I said a big thank you to Sascha and Raff, and the next day I'd be off to Carriacou to meet Benny the Beneteau, my 50-foot hurricane salvage sailboat. In the next episode, I finally get on the boat to go and visit my Beneteau 50 and check out the beautiful but hurricane-ravaged Grenadian Caribbean island of Carriacou. But the shit hits the fan when my plans to move my sailboat out of the dodgy boatyard are thwarted by the big shot. Okay guys, that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.
Hello, mother. Hello, father. Here I am at Camp Grenada. Camp is very entertaining, and they say we'll have some fun if it stops raining. I went hiking with Joe Spivey. He developed poison ivy. You remember Leonard Skinner? He got ptomaine poisoning last night after dinner. All the counselors hate the waiters, and the lake has alligators. And the head coach wants no sissies, so he reads to us from something called Ulysses. Now I don't want this should scare you, but my bunkmate has malaria. You remember Jeffrey Hardy? They're about to organize a searching party. Take me home, oh mother, take me home. I hate Grenada, don't leave me out in the forest where I might get eaten by a bear. Take me home, I promise I will not make noise or mess the house with other boys. Oh, please don't make me stay. I've been here one whole day. Dearest butter, darling mother, how's my precious little brother? Let me come home if you miss me. I would even let Aunt Bertha hug and kiss me. Wait a minute. It stopped hailing. Guys are swimming. Guys are sailing. Playing baseball. Gee, that's better. Mother, father, kindly disregard this ladder.